The night Marcus walked into that restaurant, he had already decided it would be the last blind date anyone would ever talk him into. He did not know, sitting in that corner booth with a glass of water he hadn't touched and a menu he had already read twice, that by the time the check came, every person in that room would go quiet in a way that had nothing to do with embarrassment and everything to do with something far more difficult to name. Marcus Hale was 39 years old. He ran a small furniture restoration shop out of a converted garage on the edge of town, the kind of place that smelled like linseed oil and cedar and the particular silence of work that requires patience. He had been divorced for 4 years, not bitterly, just cleanly, the way a piece of wood sometimes splits along the grain and both halves are still perfectly good. He was not looking for anything. He had told his friend Derek this no fewer than 6 times in the 2 weeks before that Friday evening. Derek had nodded each time and then texted the restaurant address anyway. The place was called Harlow's. Not fancy. Mismatched chairs, paper napkins, a handwritten sign near the salsa bar that said, "Warning, that one is actually hot." Warm lighting, generous portions, the kind of place that is honest about what it is. Marcus arrived 8 minutes early and sat in the booth nearest the window and watched the November parking lot and thought about a walnut credenza he had left half-sanded on the workbench. She arrived at 7 on the dot. He noticed her before he recognized her as the woman he was waiting for. She came through the door in a dark green coat that was slightly too large for her, hair clipped up in the way of someone who had started doing something with it and then run out of time. There was paint on the back of her left hand, a smear of something pale blue, and she was scanning the room with the expression of a person who had made a decision she was not entirely at peace with. When her eyes found Marcus, there was a single beat of mutual appraisal, and then she crossed the room and sat down before he could stand up. "You're early," she said. "That's either reassuring or unsettling. I haven't decided." 8 minutes, Marcus said. "Make of that what you will." She almost smiled. Claire Hadley. Marcus Hale. She pulled off her gloves with the efficiency of someone who had a system for everything because systems were what kept things from falling apart. She was 36, he would learn later, divorced, 2 years out from it, 3 kids, 7, 10, and 12, and a job teaching art at the elementary school 2 towns over. She ordered the soup and the half sandwich and a glass of water and studied the menu a moment longer than necessary, and Marcus understood that she was not nervous, precisely. She was careful. There was a difference. It was Derek's wife, Joanna, who had arranged this. Joanna had described Claire as brilliant and tired and not interested in being managed, which was how Marcus had known Joanna actually liked her. He had expected someone brittle, someone who had learned to hold people at arm's length and called it self-respect. Claire Hadley was not that. She was warm in the way that a room is warm after someone has been working in it for hours, not performed, not decorative, just present. "Derek says you make furniture," she said. "Restore it mostly, old pieces, stuff people have given up on." She looked at him for a moment with something that might have been recognition. "There's a metaphor in there somewhere. I leave those to people who get paid for them." She did smile that time. It happened quickly, the way real ones do. The soup came. The bread came. Outside, the parking lot had filled up and the restaurant had gotten louder in the pleasant low way of Friday evenings when people are relieved the week is behind them. They talked about nothing important for a while, and Marcus noticed that Claire had a habit of tilting her head slightly to the left when she was listening to something that interested her. He noticed this because he caught himself saying things that were more interesting than he usually bothered to be, just to see if she would do it. That was when Craig walked in. Marcus did not know Craig's last name then or now and had no interest in learning it. He was the kind of man who entered a room as though he had reserved it in advance. Broad shoulders, a jacket that fit too well, the practiced ease of someone who had never once wondered whether he belonged somewhere. He was with 2 other men, and they took the large round table near the center of the room. Marcus would not have registered him at all, except that Craig paused on his way past their booth and looked at Claire with the specific expression of someone recalculating a prior dismissal. "Claire!" Not a question, not quite a greeting. Claire's shoulders did something small and contained. "Craig. Didn't know you were still going out these days." He glanced at Marcus with the particular incuriosity that is actually its own statement. "Good for you." The silence that followed lasted 3 seconds and felt considerably longer. Claire had set her spoon down. Her face had not changed in any way that was visible, and that stillness cost her something, Marcus could tell. It was the stillness of someone who had learned to make themselves very small in front of a certain kind of person and had not yet fully stopped doing it. Marcus looked up at Craig for the first time. "You'll have to speak up. We're having a conversation." Craig blinked. "Sorry?" The interruption. I'm guessing it was important. One of Craig's friends at the round table had turned to look. Craig's easy smile did something complicated at the edges. he said, with the careful friendliness of a man who has just felt the ground shift. Just saying hello, and moved to his table and sat down and did not look over again. Claire looked at Marcus. You didn't have to do that. No, Marcus agreed. He picked up his water glass. I know. She watched him for a moment, and then picked up her spoon and went back to her soup. The evening moved differently after that. Something had been established, though neither of them named it. They ordered coffee when the food was done, and the restaurant got quieter as the later crowd thinned, and at some point Claire had taken off her coat and draped it over the bench, and they were just two people at a corner table with mugs going lukewarm between them. She told him about the art classes, about the way kids that age had no fear of color yet, about how the 10-year-old, Nate, she said his name like it was something she kept safe in her chest, had started drawing dense, complicated maps of imaginary countries, and she had been framing them one by one and hanging them in the hallway. She talked about her kids the way people talk about the things they are most proud of and most frightened for simultaneously, without performance, without apology. Does it scare people off? Marcus asked. The three. She considered this with the gravity it deserved. Some, the ones who think of children as a detail that can be minimized, and the ones who don't, who haven't met enough of those to have data. He turned his mug in his hands. My father raised me and my brother alone from the time I was 9. My mother got sick. He did not say more than that. She did not ask him to. She just tilted her head to the left, a fraction, and that was enough. Outside, it had started to rain. The windows were fogged at the bottom edges. The restaurant had the particular late evening hush of a place where most tables have emptied, and the ones that haven't are in no hurry to. I should probably get back, Claire said. She did not move. I have a babysitter, 17, extremely capable, and I am still catastrophizing from here. What specifically? Someone has eaten something they're allergic to, my youngest has convinced the others to stay up until midnight, and my cat has done something to the curtains. A pause. The curtain one is the most likely. Then go, Marcus said. But he said it gently, which is different. She reached for her coat and then stopped. She looked at him with the directness of someone who has decided that being careful is costing more than it's saving. I'd like to do this again, she said. No obligation. Derek can stay out of it this time. Derek should stay out of most things, Marcus said. That's something we agree on. She wrapped her scarf around once, picked up her bag, and at the door turned back briefly. The streetlight caught the side of her face, and she looked like someone just beginning to let herself be a little less tired. He sat in the booth for another 10 minutes after she left and did not think about the credenza at all. They saw each other the following Wednesday. Coffee, Claire's choice. A place near the school with mismatched saucers and a chalkboard menu that was at least a week behind. She had come from a parent meeting and still had a faint streak of yellow chalk on her forearm. She did not notice it, and Marcus did not mention it. They stayed 2 hours. She told him about Nate's maps, about her oldest Bex, who was 12 and had recently developed an opinion about everything, and about her youngest Sam, who believed with complete conviction that raccoons were capable of moral reasoning. He's not entirely wrong, Marcus said. That's exactly what he needed to hear from a credible adult. She was looking at him across the table with something that was not quite amusement, but was somewhere in that direction. You're easy to be around, she said. Some people, you have to perform for them. With you, I just... She stopped. Sorry. That came out more vulnerable than I intended. It was accurate, Marcus said. Accurate is good. A wind had come up outside and was pushing a paper cup across the sidewalk. She watched it for a moment. My ex thought I had narrowed, like I was a road that had lost its lanes. The voice of someone testing how much weight a sentence can hold. Marcus was quiet. Then, the man was measuring the wrong thing. She looked at him. The restaurant was small enough that other tables reached them as a soft, ambient blur. A kettle hissed somewhere behind the counter. She did not say anything, and he did not need her to, and the moment settled somewhere behind the ribs and stayed. Her sister called that afternoon. Donna, who was 41 and organized, and had opinions about every decision Claire had made for 6 years. She had heard through the circuit that Claire had been seen twice with someone new and called to express what she referred to as concern, but was actually a preference that Claire's life remain navigable within her existing map of it. Claire told Marcus this on their 3rd meeting, a walk along the river path near his shop, with the wry economy of someone who has made peace with a particular variety of exhaustion. She thinks I'm moving too fast. We've had coffee. Threatening pace, Marcus said. She also thinks you're a wild card because you restore furniture. What would a safe card look like? Someone with a pension, her word. The path was narrow enough that they walked close together, close enough that her coat sleeve brushed his arm on the bends. The river ran quick from the week's rain, brown-green and serious. The air smelled of wet leaves and late autumn cold. There was a bench ahead with a missing slat on the back, and they sat on it anyway, watching the water. "She's not wrong to watch out for you," Marcus said. "I know that. I'm 36, Marcus. I have 3 kids and a job I love and a cat that destroys curtains, and I'm genuinely excellent at managing my own life." She looked at the river. "What do you need?" he asked. She turned to look at him. It was the kind of question people rarely ask with the actual intention of hearing the answer. "I need someone who doesn't treat my kids like a situation to be handled," she said quietly. "Someone who isn't intimidated by a full life, and someone who will tell me if the salsa is actually hot instead of letting me find out on my own." He almost laughed. "The sign told you. I thought it was a liability warning." Their shoulders were touching in the unhurried way of people who are not in a hurry to name what is happening because they can feel it clearly enough without a name. It was the following Saturday that it happened. Nate had a school concert, not a recital, a concert. He insisted on the distinction. Claire had mentioned it in passing, not as an invitation, and Marcus had said after a careful pause, "What time does it start?" She told him. He went. The auditorium was small and warm, and smelled of floor wax and the sweetness of rooms that have housed a great many lunches. Parents filled folding chairs in rows, phones already raised. Claire was in the 3rd row with Bex on one side and Sam on the other, Sam wearing a clip-on tie he had apparently insisted on. She saw Marcus come in, and her face did something she couldn't quite contain in time. He sat in the empty seat beside Sam. "You're the furniture guy," Sam said immediately. "I am," Marcus said. Sam considered this with the gravity of a 7-year-old who is not yet cynical about anything. "Could you fix a skateboard?" "Sam," Claire said, leaning across. "Probably," Marcus said. Sam nodded as though a contract had been reached and faced forward, satisfied. Bex, on Claire's other side, evaluated Marcus with a 12-year-old's quiet precision and apparently found him acceptable, which he understood was not guaranteed. The lights went down and the kids filed on stage, Nate among them in a plaid shirt and the expression of someone who had been preparing for weeks and was determined to show none of it. The concert was not sophisticated. The violins wobbled in places, the cellos occasionally disagreed, and one young trumpeter appeared to be improvising in a key the composer had not intended. It was completely the best thing Marcus had heard in years. He watched Claire watch her son. She was not performing pride. She was just proud, simply and entirely, with no self-consciousness in it at all, and something in Marcus's chest that had been held in its particular arrangement for 4 years quietly rearranged itself. Nate hit a run near the end that was clean and confident and right. Claire's hand came off her knee and found Marcus's arm without her seeming to notice she had done it. She squeezed once, briefly, and then the piece ended and the applause started, and Sam stood up and cheered in a way that required his entire body, and Marcus clapped and smiled in the particular way of a man who has just understood something he is not ready to say out loud. After the concert, in the parking lot, Bex herding Sam toward the car, and Nate carrying his violin case with enormous dignity, Claire stood beside Marcus in the cold air and looked at him. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I know. You keep doing things you don't have to do." He looked at her. The parking lot light was amber above them, her breath visible in the cold. "Claire," he said, "I want to. That's different from have to." She looked at him for a long moment with the expression of someone deciding whether to step onto ice they have tested and found solid. The wind moved. Somewhere behind them, Sam was explaining to Bex that raccoons understood fairness. "Are you trying not to say something?" she asked. "No," he said. "I'm saying it." She reached out and took his hand briefly, her fingers cold from the evening air, and he held them. That was all. It was enough. In the months that followed, the thing built the way good things do. Not dramatically, but thoroughly. Saturday mornings in Claire's kitchen with the coffee too strong and 3 children at varying stages of readiness for the day. Evenings at the shop where she brought a thermos and sat on the old step stool and watched him work without needing to fill the silence. An afternoon when Sam got a splinter that required more courage than the operation warranted, and Marcus held the flashlight with complete seriousness while Claire handled it. And afterward Sam announced that Marcus was trustworthy, which the older two agreed was high praise. There was a Sunday in March when the light came through the kitchen window and Claire was making tea and talking about the grade 5 mural project, and Marcus was sitting at the table listening, and it occurred to him with the completeness of something finally measured correctly that this was the life that had been waiting on the other side of the stagnant years. This ordinary, full, unglamorous, irreplaceable life. He had kept a small thing in his coat pocket since January, waiting for the right moment, trusting he would know it. It came on a Tuesday in April, not a special day in any planned sense. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet in the way of a house that has been loud all evening and is now resting. Claire was sitting cross-legged on the couch with a mug of tea and one of Nate's maps in her hands, studying it with genuine attention. The lamp threw a warm amber circle. Marcus sat beside her. He said her name. She looked up. He told her, simply and without preamble, that he loved her and her full life and her 3 kids and her cat and her cold hands and the blue paint she never noticed, and he opened his hand. It was not a ring. It was a small brass key, the kind that belonged to an old cabinet she had admired months ago in his shop, a piece she had said she wished she could fix but didn't know how. He had spent 3 weeks restoring it. He had made a key for it. "I thought I'd start with the key," he said, "and ask if you'd like the rest of it." She looked at the key in his palm for a long time, then she looked at him, then she said, "Yes," quietly and completely, and leaned her head against his shoulder. And outside the April night was cool and clear, and somewhere in the walls of that full house the day settled into something permanent. They married the following October. The ceremony was in the backyard, string lights in the trees, fire pit burning at the edge of the lawn, Bex reading a poem she had written herself, Sam carrying the rings in a carved box Marcus had made for the occasion, Nate playing a single short piece before the vows that was clean and confident and right, the same quality Marcus had heard in that elementary school auditorium the night everything shifted. Donna gave a toast that was generous and largely sincere. Craig was not invited. Derek was, and behaved himself mostly. Marcus stood at the fire's edge with his wife beside him, her cold hand in his, wood smoke and October air around them, and thought about how the best things in his life had not announced themselves. They had simply appeared, patient, unglamorous, solid, and waited for him to be still enough to see them. Sometimes careful is just fear with better manners. He had been careful for a long time. He was glad, finally, that he had stopped. Now here's a question for you. If a friend had set you up with someone who came with a full life, a complicated history, and 3 kids, would you have shown up to that concert? And have you ever had a moment where you realized the thing you were waiting for had been right there the whole time, and you almost missed it because you were expecting it to look different? Tell me your story in the comments. If this one meant something to you, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.